Leah checking in. You're muted, Leah. You look great, though. Feel free to unmute yourself. All right, looks like most people are here. We are going to get started. All right, well, welcome everyone. Greetings. Welcome back to Real Talk Kinktober. Thank you so much for being here. It's nice to see you all, returning guests, new guests as well, new panelists and returning panelists. So we're extremely excited for this special edition. We're diving into the playfulness, the innovation, the creativity, and the spectrum of kink. We remind you if at any time you have some questions, comments, or reflections to put those in the chat. We want to hear from you. We have a lot of questions to get through tonight and so little time. So we're going to jump in right after some brief introductions. And actually, I'll invite our guests right now. If you're here, if you're feeling like engaging, just share with us one word that comes to mind when you think of the word kink. And you can put that word in the chat. So one word that comes to mind when you think of the word kink for our guests, you can put that in the chat. We're just going to break the ice there a little bit. And we're going to jump right into introductions and questions. For those of you I haven't met yet, my name is Jamie Azar. I'm the host and founder of Real Talk and owner of Erotic Expressions, where I work with individuals and partners plus to turn shame off, turn pleasure on, and redefine relationships, sex, and intimacy beyond norms, binaries, sociocultural scripts, pressure, and expectations. And the word that comes to mind when I think of kink is sprinkles. I'm going to pass the mic to Brandy, and I will also put the order of introductions in the chat for our panelists. So Brandy Allen, who's the first time here, feel free to jump in and share a little bit about yourself and a word that comes to mind when you think of the word kink.
Hi, my name is Brandy Kink, and I'm the founder of Dismantling Your Internalized Slut Shame. And I believe that everybody has the right to be completely and wholeheartedly themselves, which is why I have so much passion for sex in general. I like to work with older folks and non-body abled individuals. I also work very well with couples and singles, and my specialty is introduction to kink and fetish. A word that comes to mind when I think of kink is play, because I think it is the most playful thing about us, and it is a lot of our internal child that comes out when we play. So, yeah. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Love Coach Tam, and I am a relationship coach as well as a wedding officiant. And the first word that comes to mind when I think of kink is fun, just because you can explore all of the sides of yourself that you may not be able to at work and just out in public and things like that. So you can just explore different sides of yourself and have fun with it. So that's my take on kink.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jerry, and I'm a licensed independent clinical social worker and certified sex therapist in Washington, D.C. My work revolves around people with addiction recovery and disability justice. And the word that first came to mind, I was so excited about this, what for me was fuck, because I feel like fuck means so many things. It can be fuck out of joy. It can be fuck as a description. It can be fuck as I'm impressed with what the fuck is going on in here. I just feel like it's just a way of just good expression.
I love it, Jay. Hi, everyone. My name is Oksana Belousova. I'm a sex coach and a dominatrix. I've been exploring kink for over 15 years, and the first word that comes to my mind, it's a philosophy around the kink, is trust, because every exploration, every scene, every connection that we build is based on trust. Thank you.
Thanks, Oksana. Lacey, you want to hop in?
Yeah, hi, I'm Lacey Bond, Intimacy Lacey. I am a post-purity culture intimacy coach. I work in sex coaching, relationship coaching, purity culture recovery. I identify as a post-purity kinkster, since a lot of us have found freedom, which is my one word, in the practice of kink and BDSM specifically.
Thanks, Lacey. We've got Leah and then Amy. And just for guests, I am working on that chat.
Oh, is it on me?
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks, Leah.
Because it didn't notify me. Okay, I am so sorry, guys.
You're fine.
My name is Leah Townsend. I'm creator of the Poly Nest. I do poly life coaching, which covers all the polys: polyamory, polyandry, polygamy, polygyny, all of it. And I've been, I would say, doing this for about 8 years now. I've been poly about 2 decades now, so I'm deep in it. All right, and I my word for like kinking out is spicy. It's like spicy vibes, having fun and letting I would say letting a different side of yourself come out that even some people don't do with their spouses. So it's kind of like, I don't know. It's giving secret, it's giving spicy, it's also giving freedom. I'm not good with the one word thing. So anyway.
I like all those words. I love it. Yeah, thanks. Amy?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Amy. I am an intimacy coach. I'm also an RN and a public health professional. I am the founder of Come Talk with Amy and also pod host of the podcast Come Talk with Amy. And I help people bring sex out of the shadows and into day-to-day convos, as well as help individuals, couples, thruples, and plus step into their pleasure power. And my word is gushingly good time.
All right. Yeah, I know my imagination's running wild over here. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks to our guests who are dropping some words in. I see creativity as well. I love it. Thanks for engaging. We're loving to hear from you. So we're going to jump right in. I think it would be helpful to answer the first question that was submitted. And also it'll be helpful to just go over some vocabulary and provide a framework for us for this discussion. Someone asked us the question, what is the difference between kink, fetish, and vanilla? Yeah, Oksana, thanks.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna kick in the call. So vanilla, what is vanilla? Vanilla means traditional sex, focused on emotional intimacy and what social considered normal, right? What we know. And kink is anything that adds creativity on top of it, power dynamics, different plays, explorations. And fetish is when a specific object and material, it could be a body part, just an object, right? It could be a key source for arousal, for sexual arousal. So, but I guess everything that combines everything, the constant communication and curiosity, doesn't matter vanilla, kink, or fetish, right? But they're same at the same time. They're all different.
Yeah, Brandy, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would love to. I guess the only thing I wanted to add was I am not, me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the term vanilla. I do believe when it comes to kink and fetish and your degree of it is in itself not vanilla per person. Because just because someone can get whipped by, a whip and someone can get whipped by a feather doesn't make one better than the other. They're both kinky in nature because each person is pushing their boundaries of what they can take, which is essentially what we want to accomplish. We want to grow in that aspect. So inherently, no one's necessarily vanilla. Some people are just, their boundaries are just further than others, I guess is kind of what I wanted to add.
Yeah, so I heard the word norms as relative to vanilla. For example, I'm hearing vanilla can be subjective and relative, and the word kinky even can be relative and subjective. I heard the words creativity and exploration, curiosity when it comes to kink, and then I heard the word more of a requirement or for fetish when it comes to someone's arousal. Yeah, love Coach Tam. Do you want to hop in and add to the conversation? And I know other people were also asking between the differences between kink and BDSM as well.
Yes, so BDSM is bondage, dominant, submissive, masochistic, all of those types of things. So where you're just using different tools and things to elevate the level of pleasure, pretty much. Whether you're more of a pain person or a pleasure person is literally up to the person. but I will like kind of piggyback off of just vanilla and as a term. I don't think I really like to use that term much just because it is kind of up to the person. So you can't really say what's vanilla because that could be something different for me and the next person, just depending on what our preferences and comfort level is. But as far as kink and fetish, like kinks would be things that you enjoy, different activities and interests that kind of deviate from what people see as like standard or normal sex acts. So that could be even something that someone may see as taboo, like role playing or just things like that. I mean, I know back a couple years ago and stuff, like people saw fellatio as kind of like the bad taboo type of thing to do. So some people may kind of find that to be like a kinky thing or whatever, but to another person that may be vanilla. But someone else that may be stepping way outside of their comfort zone. So it really just depends. But that isn't the same as a fetish, which is something that is necessary to be able to get off versus something that you just enjoy and you can or cannot have it and you'll still be okay. But like with the fetish, you more so, I don't know, it's like a sexual fixation with like non-living objects or different things like that or body parts. So they're very similar. They go hand in hand, but they're not the same. So using kink and fetish interchangeably doesn't really work because they're not exactly the same. So I know that was a long spiel.
I think that was helpful. Yeah, Lacey, did you want to add to that or clarify?
Just a tiny bit. I love that we're talking about how it's subjective because for a lot of people like that I work with coming from purity culture, like any sex is taboo. Taboo is subjective. So like for a lot of people, they're just kind of putting the BDSM framework around something that to most other people would seem like really normal and like vanilla, but when you come from like being told that like even like baseline healthy human sexuality is wrong, like the taboo spectrum is very wide. So I love that we're establishing that.
Yeah, what I'm also hearing too is like we have the agency and autonomy to use these terms for ourselves, for our own self definition and whatever feels good for us. And I'm hearing some great things from the chat. Odette saying vanilla is what's considered normal again or traditional, but all our traditions or norms can be different depending on our context and heritage. I love that. Thanks for sharing. And also a question, kink can also be not sexual, but can fetish be not sexual as well? And the answer to that is yes. And we're going to get into that. There's going to be time for that discussion. So we'll be adding on to that. So absolutely. So all fetishes are kinks, but not all kinks are necessarily fetishes. Kink is more of that umbrella term of erotic play. And then that fetish is a specific, often essential turn on. It might be an object, an activity or behavior. Good. Someone else had asked, I'd like to move on to the next question. They'd ask, is there room for everyone in BDSM? And again, BDSM is falling kind of under this umbrella term of kink. And as Love Coach Tam said, is bondage, discipline, dominance, sadism, submission, and masochism. So is there room for everyone in BDSM? Yeah, Brandy, Love Coach Tam.
Hey, yes. The beautiful thing about BDSM and kink and fetish, like we said, it is subjective. And many people think that many like disabilities kind of put you off to the idea of being able to engage in these things. What we don't remember is that since it is subjective and pain is subjective, and we all have a different tolerance and level of what we can accomplish, regardless of ability or disability or whatever you want to call it, there is something that everybody can engage in. So in a sense of like sensory deprivation, you're being put in a position of having disabilities at that moment, but you are still able to communicate. You are still able to have the red fine line to define how much is too much, how much is not enough, right? So regardless of where you stand on whatever spectrum it may be, there are ways to change how things are done so that regardless of what you're facing, you can still engage It may not look like the cookie cutter version that we may assume it should look like, but you're still being able to experience what BDSM as a whole is in your own way. And that's what's so beautiful about it. It's malleable and it's so interpersonal to ourselves.
Yeah, thanks, Brittany. What I kind of heard from you was really it's not just for able-bodied folks, right? It can be for people who are disabled, for example. We can find creativity and space for our own pleasure in whatever creative, comfortable way works for us. That's also what I was hearing for you, which I think we need to celebrate, right? And we have to be aware of that ableism does exist in some communities. Yeah, I love Coach Tam. I see a hand, and then anyone else who wants to jump in, feel free to use a hand.
I do agree with that as well. There is space for everyone, as far as the kink community or BDSM is concerned, because the thing is, everyone has, things that help them achieve pleasure. Everyone, well, I mean, most people, I won't speak for everyone, but, I just feel like there is nothing that is specifically for this group of people and that group of people. I feel like there is space for everyone. Everybody is a beautiful body, and where there's a body, there can be pleasure and pain. And so, I mean, what that looks like for everyone is going to be different. So there's definitely going to be space. You just have to make the modifications that are necessary to achieve what you're trying to achieve in this space. So I definitely agree with things that have already been said, for sure.
Yeah, thanks, Tam. Lacey, what would you add to that?
Yeah, just like kind of going along with that like spectrum that we've talked about of like taboo, vanilla, etc. It's not just for people who are pain sluts. There's so many types of play that are like sensual or sensation or nurturing based. I think the only people that there's no room for is that there's people that don't understand consent and don't care to understand consent, because that's what it's all about, is doing stuff that you are both into and negotiating and co-creating together.
Yeah, love Coach Tam. Did you want to follow up with that? And Jerry as well? Yeah.
Yes, I definitely want to agree that consent and communication are the biggest things when it comes to BDSM and kink, because you want to make sure that you know your own comfort level first thing first, and then you're communicating that with your partner or partners, so that way they are aware of your comforts, your non-negotiables, um, your preferences, and things like that. So that way everyone's respected and understood, because you can't, I mean, it's going to be kind of hard to have a fun and pleasurable kinky session or experience without communication and understanding.
Absolutely. Jerry, what would you add to this?
Okay. Yeah. So I also wanted to add, like, I like to talk about consent. That is so very important. Because like, let's face it, not all of us will understand our kink levels going into it. And sometimes we have to learn. And consent is very important because some of these things are power dynamics that you have to, put a lot of trust into somebody else. And we want to make sure that we're with somebody who knows what consent is and knows that consent can be removed at any time, at any point. And I also wanted to say BDSM world does not exclude anyone. Even the title is made so that people can find community, not exclude anyone.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. Absolutely. Yeah, and in the chat, we're saying absolutely communication is paramount. People agreeing with that. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's room for everyone. And also, right, honoring consent, communication, respecting people's bodily autonomy. Absolutely, all of that. So we've gotten into some of the misconceptions of kink. I know Lacey kind of mentioned, right, that kink is not, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a pain slut, right? Or it's all about pain. So one of the questions was, what are some non-sexual benefits of kink or BDSM that you enjoy, right? Because even the misconception that kink has to be sexual. So that's even a misconception of itself. So are there non-sexual benefits of kink and BDSM that you'd enjoy or that you want to talk about? That was one of the questions. Yeah, Amy, thanks.
Hi everyone. Yes, this is my biggest dom currently, so on my lap. But I would say for me, I mean, there's so many non-sexual as well as sexual benefits. And some of the biggest non-sexual are the like psychological benefits, both in like that we talked about consent and the power that comes from that, and being able to own like your own pleasure, your yes, your no's, and being able to advocate for yourself, I think is really like powerful and healing. In fact, Lacey, who's also on the panel, was on my podcast this week or last week talking about purity culture, and I was also raised in purity culture. And so for me, it is a very healing. There are a lot of psychological, non-sexual healing aspects of kink, and also just that power play of being able to release, like in when we're looking at dominance and submission, being able to fully surrender, and that trust piece and being able to trust someone fully, like, is just so huge.
Yeah, I'd love to call in Leah, Brandy, and then Love Coach Tam.
Okay, I was muted. I'm so sorry. For me, I think that it builds a lot of trust. It's like the unspoken um, vibration in the room. So if you've blindfolded somebody, they are literally giving you permission to do things to their body, and they're trusting you. So every exercise, especially if there's, any senses that have been taken away, hearing, seeing, anything, you're building a lot of trust with this person. And it can be fun. It doesn't have to be sexual. You can blindfold each other, feed each other things, do foot massages, you have your feathers, you have your light play, and it doesn't have to turn into sex. It's just you're playing. The whole word play, hello. I mean, means you're playing. It can get sexual. It can get, rough. There's people that are into like not being able to breathe, things of that nature. And so it gets to the hardcore stuff, but it also leans towards people that are scared. Scared. It will help scared people build trust. And I think that's the hardest thing that I hear when I bring up BDSM or anything, and especially in the Black community. No handcuffs, no handcuffs, no handcuffs. Even for me, I'm like, oh, you can tie me up. I really don't want any handcuffs, because it's a psychological thing. And so, yeah, tie me up, but don't use this, and I'm fine. So consent, talking to each other. But I think it builds trust ultimately over everything else, is what I think it does. And that helps with psychological and, your relationship and, just moving forward and exploring more. Once you trust them to do that, then you may trust them to, possibly open a bank account. So, I mean, how deep are we trusting each other? So that's my take on
Good,
it.
thanks. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, Brandy, Love Coach Tam, Jerry.
Hi. Yeah, I think I want to add that a common misconception is that many of us that are in this community come from trauma. But I want people to understand that in BDSM, again, it is for everyone, meaning it's just a state of mind of play. And it is the relinquishing power and or trusting yourself enough to take on someone's relinquished power. And anybody would want to experience that regardless of your past, because we all deserve a break. And that's what it is. It's almost that separation of our stressful reality to be able to take a moment to be this internalized child that wants to be at play. And that isn't just for people who may have lost their childhood, but also for individuals who may just have a stressful job or are going through a rough relationship or something. They need that separation of reality to be at play, to be play, to be creative, to be fun. But yeah.
Yeah, Tam, what would you add to that?
I don't know. I agree with a lot of things that have already been said. The biggest thing that I was going to say is BDSM just allows you to release and have just some type of relief from just everyday life. Every day you have to be serious at work. You have to be a parent, a spouse, whatever you do for work, you have to do what you have to do. And you can't always channel like your fun, silly, side. I know for me, when I'm stressed or whatever my emotions are, my voice changes. I speak different languages with different moods. I'm just a different person all the time. But yeah, you get to explore those different things within kink space. And I think that it really does aid in just being able to just let your hair down, so to speak, take a deep breath. But then also, if you are like someone that enjoys a little bit of pain, it does give a bit of release. I mean, for me anyway, like I like the vampire glove. I should have brought that down here. I'll go get it in a second. It's a vampire glove and it has like spikes on it. And if I feel that like being like, you know, kind of a little bit of pressure on the small of my back or whatever, it just really, it gives me a big release when I have a long, stressful day. And me personally, just being like blindfolded, I can't see music really loud and I don't know what's coming. Yes, you have to have a lot of trust for that, but it builds on that trust, existing trust that you already have, because you're having to rely on this person that they're not going to hurt you, that they're going to apply the pressure that you like, but not too much. And especially if there's multiple people involved. You don't know who it is that's doing what, so you're relying on other senses and actually knowing those people. So it forces you to have to get to know a person's breathing pattern because you can't hear them, you don't see them, and if they're using tools, you don't really feel their hands. So yeah, it causes you to be hyper focused and more in tune with your partners, and it's just a wonderful experience. It's just really fun. The world of kink is just a wonderful world. So
what I heard from you, like Tam, was the relief part, stress release part can be play, it can be silly, and a place to step into a role or identity that we don't experience in daily life. I love all that. Jerry, what's coming up for you?
What's coming up for me were three things. The first thing I feel like you can get with that's non-sexual for is community. You find your weirdos. You find the people like, and typically if you like the same kinks, you're probably like socially other things together too. So you might end up finding friendship, which is great. The second thing is resources. Resources. A lot of times there's like a lot of leather giveaways or trade-offs. And so you can, trade your leather for, different leather, and you can find resources that may be supportive. I work with people with disabilities, and sometimes when we have meetings together, a person can share their resources that might be beneficial for somebody who's experiencing something very similar. And the third thing is exploration. I think a couple of people talked about that. I love exploring things. And it doesn't always have to lead to sex. It can literally just be a kink. It could be something that we just both enjoy. And exploration is something that can be sexual, but doesn't have to be a sexual benefit about being a part of the BDSM community. It aligns you with like-minded people.
I love that. Thanks for adding the piece about community and resources and exploration as well. And people are adding, they like to let your inner child take the driver's seat from the chat. People like to call it hurt so good. Absolutely. I don't know. I'm a sucker for silliness and laughter over here. So I don't know. That's kind of what I love. One non-sexual thing about kink too. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for offering ideas there. I'd like to move on to the next question. And someone had asked about role play. They're curious in exploring role play and are looking for some ideas and guidance. So, how can we help this person out who's looking for some ideas and is curious about exploring role play for the first time, getting creative? Yeah, Oksana, thanks. Brandy?
Yeah, I guess I can start about the role plays, right? The whole like role play ideas, right? I usually do these categories. There is a power play where we can play a power dynamic games like boss employee, teacher student, all from our past life fantasies, right? We can actually incorporate it within power dynamic play. There is like sensory plays where we can do temperature teasing, feathers, blindfolds, like very erotic, very sensual plays. And there is a fantasy worlds that we can actually create and play daily, monthly, and live in it. So there are different acts, and there is so many different plays. And I agree with everyone that kink, it is a play with a consent and communication, with the proper, right? We all have to have our limits. We have to know our limits so we succeed in our plays. Brandy, you can go next.
Yeah, no, thanks for
You
adding
cannot.
that. Yeah, Brandy, what's coming up for you? And we also see a sad question in the chat we'll get to in just a minute.
Okay, role play. Oh my God. When you're getting into role play, find a theme, right? Take the theme and do it by yourself first. Design your character, design their fit, design their characteristics, how they talk, how they walk, and practice it out loud until it feels right. I say the same thing for dirty talk. You want to practice it out loud. Like say your other worldly character in your role play is a dominant non-binary individual. Put that strap on, strut with it on, stroke it yourself in the mirror, and find that voice that kind of fits that role play. And when you feel confident in that character you've created and you find yourself in that character as well, take it and then find the person to play with and see how their character develops alongside it. But there's this beautiful thing that comes with role play that's like almost inner characters within ourselves that really didn't get to be. So we get to let them be for just a moment. So I love role play, but be confident in it. Create it prior to scene. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And someone else is asking in the chat, like, am I the only one to use a different language when I play? Like language as the
No,
container? Yeah,
no, I use
absolutely.
German. I use German. I love the way German sounds.
Really? I use Spanish, Dutch, and a little bit of Chinese.
I use
Absolutely.
Russian.
Yeah, there you go. So like hopefully that affirms folks in the chat again, like you can assume maybe one of these identities that we've named like teacher, student, doctor, patient, massage therapist, client, etc. Or you can really think about like kind of what Oksana was saying and Brandy, like alter egos or identities, right? And just really start asking yourself, how do I want to feel, in this scene or in this moment? Like, what characteristics or personality types might I want to kind of exude or embody in this, right? Do I want to be dominant? Do I want to be cherished? Do I want to be, domineering? Do I want to be seductive? Do I want to be child, like in childlike wonder and delight, and you just taking me for a ride, like I'm just surrendering to your power, right? Like we talked about that trust piece, more submissive. So I think like, are there certain toys you might want to play with? Again, yeah, is there a certain outfit or accessory you might want to wear or a new accent to try on? So I think this goes back to the creativity we were talking about. I see a couple hands too, wondering what Lacey and Tam might want to add here.
Yeah, we were talking about like the container, and I think we should talk about the container a little bit because the practice of BDSM specifically, like BDSM practitioner generally refers to someone who's like kind of a nerd about this, and engages with like the philosophy and the framework because the power exchange is basically like the power exchange and consent is basically like the game engine that this runs on if you play video games at all, and there's different flavors of play that correlate with like different genres of a game, but like defining the container is really important because that's really what you're negotiating. Is like we're engaging in adult play that's structured and we know the rule set, we're working off the same thing, we're building a game together that we're playing, and you can get as complex and sophisticated with this as you want, like high protocol dynamics where there's a lot of rituals, discipline, etc. Tend to be like more in that sophisticated game, but like understanding like what consent and negotiation and such mean in the context of BDM lets you create a container for safe play or risk mitigated play, because sometimes we do approach more advanced areas that could result in like things like lasting marks, bruises. Is that something you want? Is it something you don't? And like kind of remembering that this play is often happening in a container that may be kind of separate from like your general psyche and personality and who you are, just really helps. It helps us play and have more fun and do it safely. And it becomes really important when you get into any kind of like simulated consensual non-consent type of plays. You're understanding like this is a container, this is a box that we're building to do this in, so that we don't fuck up our own psyches by doing something that wasn't actually agreed upon outside of the container. You negotiate outside the container and then you go play in it.
Yeah, and so we're addressing the question in the chat about like how would you recommend going about introducing yourself for others to BDSM. And so what I'm hearing from Lacey, and correct me if I'm wrong, is starting with maybe just education around what is consent, what is negotiation, like what is the kink culture, like how do we enter into these conversations to create a container to talk about our boundaries and our protocols outside of the bedroom before we get into it. So, really, just starting with education to be prepared to have those conversations in the first place. That's kind of what I'm hearing from Lacey. Feel free to elaborate in the chat. Does anyone want to add to that? Tam, I saw a hand, Leah and Brandy. I know other people within this question were asking about vetting partners as well, STI checks and legitimacy. Um, if you guys had any discoveries or lessons to share along the way within this question as well.
I think the best way to be introduced to BDSM is to first do your own homework and just kind of look into that and see what that is, and then kind of reevaluate, okay, am I still interested in this? And then after that, then maybe join a couple groups on social media. I mean, I know that sometimes when you join groups on Facebook, it's, you'll be joining those under your personal profile and you may not feel comfortable with that. So maybe even looking things up on like Meetup and just kind of asking around if you feel comfortable with that, or looking on other like social sites, seeing some of those things, getting the contact information, so that way you're not putting your name out there if you're not comfortable with that. And then also something that I did in the past was my partner was telling me that they were interested in like kind of exploring it, and I was definitely afraid. And so I did my own homework, and I was like, oh, yeah, we kind of do all that stuff already, so it's not that scary. And that's how it is for a lot of people, really. I mean, you're just afraid of what you don't know. Once you find out, you're like, okay, well, we do that already. We already do the hair pulling and the choking and all that stuff. So, I mean, hey, and to me, I was like, oh, well, that's pretty vanilla. So BDSM isn't that bad after all. So just kind of like reevaluating, your own understanding, because it may not even be what you think it is, and then just going from there.
Yeah, and like what I'm hearing from you too is you might already be doing some kinky things, right? Or maybe you are kinky and don't even really even know about it, right? Like maybe if you're into choking, you might be into asphyxiation play, or if you want your eyes closed during sex, you might be into sensory deprivation of some kind. So educate, get curious, explore. Yeah. Leah and Brandy?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw in like how I was introduced to it. It was actually, I went to a club. It was called the Lizard Lounge. I went with my friend who she was kind of alternative, and listened to a lot of little Metallica or whatever. And I was just like, fuck it, we'll go to the club. So go to the club. And there was a man, like if you were a first timer, he had this huge belt that he had on. He had floggers, paddles, everything. And he's like, you have to be initiated. And I'm just like, what does that mean? I was horrified. And he was like, stand over there and turn around. So I had to trust this strange man with the belt, gadgets of all these things. And he ended up using the flogger, and then he did it across my back a couple of times, very lightly. It was nice. I liked it. I was like, oh my God, I've got the whole entire concept of this wrong. It went from that to seeing a man like walking around the club with two women, like having collars on a chain. They had no clothes on. So I just started seeing the world of like the BDSM. So I would suggest going to a club if you want to get started. Go. You don't have to do anything. Get a drink. Just watch, observe, see the lifestyle, see what they're doing, see how they're playing with one another. It opened my eyes, and then I've pretty much been into it ever since. And this was many, many years ago. So I'm saying go to the club. Go to a specific club that has that, as a part of kind of their theme, I would say. So you can find them. There's not a lot, but this was in Texas and it was in Dallas. So if that helps anybody.
Yeah, and what I heard too, or kind of what came up for me and Brandy, I know you want to come into the conversation, is just like the importance of us learning the role of our internal consent as well, right? And that's an art and a practice and can take time. Like what in my body is a yes, what is a no? Like, I know I've heard about fawning, like that can happen in play spaces as well. So really just checking in with our bodies, right? What's a yes, what's a no? You know, maybe it's better for me to observe this first time. We don't necessarily have to play, right, at the club or a dungeon. Brandy, I'm curious what's coming up for you. I also see Love Coach Tam's hand.
Oh, it was in regard to the STI and the STD checks. So
Yes, that
I
was
don't think,
another part of the question.
yeah.
Vetting partners,
Mhm.
STI checks, and legitimacy.
Yeah, so something I learned very early on is that you're entitled to know what is being allowed to touch your body. You're entitled to know the safety and, just standing of what is being allowed to touch your body because you are giving that power to the person to touch you. So something that I've also noticed is that it is quite scary to go get tested. It is quite scary to know your status and know what to do about that. Something I like to do, because I do believe in full transparency, when I meet someone that I really want to sleep with, our first date is getting tested together. And if they do agree to that and we do go together, it's always really nice to know that there was that consideration and care for my body, so much so that they were willing to put themselves in a vulnerable state. And then if we know that maybe one of us is not up to par, we know how long to wait, which is, again, really nice because most STDs are not a death sentence, believe it or not, because some people do believe that. So that's always a good way to go, or go with a group of friends. I've also done that. I'll post it on my Instagram every now and then, like, hey, I'm gonna go get tested. Who would like to join me? I can pick you up. We can go in my car. We can carpool. So that's another good way to do that. However, if you're gonna be playing just erratically, what you could do is called a dick check. If you're a female or female presenting person on a partner that may have a penis, what you do is put alcohol on your hand. And normally, if there is no sores or scars or anything, they won't feel it. However, if they do feel it and there is a sting, you probably should not sleep with that person at that moment and maybe just wait or go get tested. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Love it. Love Coach Tam. Is there anything you wanted to add to that and talking about just normalizing getting tested, celebrating it, going with friends, going with partners, play partners? I see My Chart app is also very helpful. Thanks, Jerry.
What I normally do, so I kind of wanted to comment on the normalizing testing as well as just kind of like exploring for the first time or even introducing it to someone. So as far as testing, there are always like different free testing events and stuff like that. So I like to find those and then post them on my social media, even if I'm not attending that one specifically. I will still post it like on my story and stuff like that. I'll send it to other friends that I know are serious about their testing. And even if I don't know, I mean, I just send it out. I put the information out there because you never know who needs it and if they may not have insurance or access to medical care and stuff like that. Then those types of things are very helpful. When I was in college, I used to go because, I mean, little to my knowledge then, I was already polyamorous. So I used to like to go and get tested and make sure that I knew my status. And I'm going to agree, like sometimes it can be a little scary to go and find out your status, especially if, you're young and wild and free. Yeah, but you need to know. So you got to go to that campus health fair and go get tested. And I used to go with my homegirl. We would go, I would tell my other partners and stuff like that, like, hey, they got that testing down there, the student center building, going on down there. And some people would be like, yeah, but then I have also witnessed that sometimes when you bring up getting tested, some people get offended. Like, what you trying to say? I'm dirty? Why do we have to think in that way? So just the stigma of having an STI needs to change as well as just normalizing testing, because I don't like to use terms like dirty and clean because these things are very common. I mean, HPV, for example, I mean, you can use a condom and still get HPV. And it's so common to where they don't even test for it before the age of 30. So, I mean, anyone could have it and not even know. So that's why it's important to get tested and go get all of the things, the PAPs and all of the testing that you can get. So I always post stuff about getting pap smears and HPV and stuff like that. So that's the way that I like to put it out there. And then also with exploration and things of that nature, I kind of explored and figured out what I liked or whatever by talking to a guy on social media. I saw him posting different things in his story, and I just stumbled upon it because my husband wanted to like explore BDSM. Like I said, it stressed me out, but I looked into it. It looked fun. It looked interesting. Flew the guy in, and he pretty much does like new room massages. If anyone's interested, I'll send you the link on social media. Just reach out. But he does like new room massages and stuff like that. But he also introduces you to different tools and things, and it was very interesting. And I didn't think that I would want to be blindfolded or use nipple clamps and just all the different things that he had. They all intimidated me. He even had like electric wands that kind of zap you or whatever. And I had a couple marks, but I didn't mind it. I thought it was kind of like sexy, you know? And so I ended up falling in love with all of these different things and ordered my own little vampire gloves and Wardenberg wheels and stuff like that. So you never know what you're going to like. So I would personally suggest like talking to someone that specializes in this, that can like set up your own little personal one-on-one like play session, and that way you can see what you like. And if you don't know if you'll trust that person, I mean, they are a professional, but I mean, some people do some wicked things. Bring a friend that you trust, you know, bring a sex partner that you have. I mean, my husband wanted to try BDSM, so of course I dragged him along, and it was like a sweetest day surprise a couple years ago. Had the time of our life, mind you. So do something like that. That's kind of cool if you're like intimidated by going into public space and doing it. Because I wouldn't want to go to a public space. I would be scared of going to the club to do that because I don't know what it's like. So, I mean, do either or. It's just if you're an extrovert or an introvert or whatever your comfort level is.
Nice. Yeah. Jerry, what's coming up for you? You're muted, hon.
Not that I did the old people thing, but no, I wanted to kind of piggyback on the STI piece. So, I have my chart on my phone or the Hilo app, and literally you can pull up your test results right then and there in real time, and it has the date that you also took it. Because I practice casual sex, um, and um, and you just need to be able to pull it up to show in that moment if you're asked. And if you're going to ask me, I need to see yours as well. Practice saying that piece. There was something else I wanted to kind of add on to it. Um, I guess that's it. But yeah, just focus on the my chart and like use that to your availability.
I love that. Thanks for everyone sharing those, ways to enter into exploring BDSM and kink for the first time, whether that is at a club, whether that is more in a private setting through education, and also in terms of vetting partners, all of the different ways we can do that, right? By getting tested, making it part of our daily routines, right? Rituals, like going with friends, all the things we talked about. So that's excellent. And then Love Coach Tam kind of opened up the conversation, which I think another question people were wondering is like, how do people discover their kinks? I heard through exploration, right? Like you had that experience and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to get my own vampire gloves or whatever. Like that kind of opened it up for you. Amy, Oksana, I'm curious, anything you want to add there about like other ways that people can discover kinks? Is it by accident, curiosity, intention, a little bit of both? Amy, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I can comment on that. I mean, definitely exploration. If you people, we're bringing up the idea of clubs or play parties. If you're a voyeurist, like that's a great way to like be in those spaces. There's also, I'm here in New York City, so we have a lot of these, but other local events where they are teaching about different kinks. Um, and also like erotica, like reading about different modalities and yeah, what is it, electric play? Is it and sometimes it's just through experience, right? Like I had an experience if someone was like, "Oh, I'm thinking about this because Love Coach Tam keeps on talking about the vampire gloves," and I'm like, I have experienced one recently, and I'm like, yes. But somebody I was playing with was like, "Oh, I'm kind of like a vampire," and I was like, "That's cute for them." Like I'm thinking about this during the negotiation, but then I experienced it and I was like, "Ooh, this is hot for me." Like I like this. So some of the things that really is about that exploration, if you're open and willing to that. But again, that should be part of the negotiation, right? Any exploration should be agreed upon beforehand, before you're introducing that into the scene.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. Oksana, what would you add to that?
I guess I would just add that just through intentional. So some people, they just want to explore their bodies because it comes with the experience and wisdom, I guess, that we all know that our body is erogenous landscape, the landscape of erogenous zones, right? And some people just intentionally want to explore the body, and they doing their own research, and this is how they kink building in the mind, and it depends the right partner, right group to explore it. And I want to mention the Fat Life Network community is great for all the levels, from beginners to high-end advanced levels. You can find your munchkins, you can find your meetup groups. Amazing. Everybody is very welcome. A lot of people are following the consent law regulations and everything. So I'd say it's a very safe community. Just make sure that you do your proper research.
Yeah. Thanks for adding all of that as well. I'd love to go to maybe one more final question here that's more general. How do you folks think that kink can help people reconnect with their bodies in ways that traditional sex may or may not? Yeah, Amy, I'd love to hear from you. And I see Brandy and then Oksana.
Yeah, like I am a sensation whore, so like I love anything sensation play, and that includes sensory deprivation, so putting on a blindfold and whether I mean I like the light touches, so whether that's a feather, but I also like I'm huge on electric play, like any type of sensation, hot, cold, wax play, and just filling into those senses helps you be so present and connecting with your body, and the different erogenous zones and really being able to feel into them more than just like traditional, for heterosexual PMV type of sex.
So really grounding, the mindfulness, the presence, tuning into the sensation in the body, focusing on the here and now as opposed to maybe the next activity or racing to an end goal. I love it. Yeah, Brandy?
Hi. Okay, so my favorite thing about it is that there are many aspects to our character. There's our physical being, our spiritual being, our thoughts, our emotions, all of that. And we can separate those different aspects of us and we can actually talk to each one individually. So something to be very mindful of when you are in play is which one it's talking to the most, because that may be the one that's being neglected. So pinpoint which one is being neglected and why it came forward during this act that you may be engaging in. And then ask it, okay, well, why are you piqued? What am I lacking here? And it may be something like you haven't paid attention to it. So my spiritual being tends to come out a lot when I'm doing mostly sensory deprivation, because I've gone a few days not praying. Maybe I haven't cleansed my house in a while, and it's kind of asking me like, you're being shut down and you should be talking to me right now. And I really love that aspect of it, being able to separate each part and waiting for something to come forward and asking it, why did this bring you forward? What happened there? And it reconnects you to your entire being, and there's almost like a connection to your intersectional identity that's really beautiful that comes with it. So yeah.
Thanks for adding that. Yeah, Jerry?
I think a benefit of BDSM that I've noticed is I've also worked with people in recovery. And the BDSM community, one opens a lot of people up to experiences, but it allows people to rewrite their stories where sex could be done with drug fusion. And so they can go back into those kinks and have a different experience. And it allows you to have the sexual freedom that you probably once experienced before or want to experience without the drugs.
So it can be a place for spirituality, like Brandy said, a place for healing and corrective experiences as well. Lacey?
Yeah, on that corrective experiences, I mean, nurture-based dynamics like having a daddy or mommy dom, often not really that sexually based, but those dynamics provide people like a level of reparenting that's really cool and like getting like healing your inner child basically. And a lot of people who come from purity culture gravitate towards that.
Yeah,
Who knows
absolutely.
why?
Well, thank you all so much. I'm looking at the time. We have about 2 minutes. Guests, if there are any other questions, feel free to share them in the chat and we can either try to address those in the last couple minutes or follow up with an email. Participants, are there any other final comments? Yeah, Brandy, I see a hand before we say goodbye.
There was somebody asking about certain questions that may be asked when you're being vetted. Some of the biggest ones are going to be regarding your position on what is consent. And then you also will be asked how firm you are in your boundaries. So there will be a few questions that, depending on how you answer them, they themselves can kind of engage whether or not you will be capable of setting your boundaries firm. You may be asked what your hard limits are, your soft limits, what's a no, what's a go, all of that. Just in case you do engage in play. And you will sign waivers as well that say if you consent to play, that you will also verbalize when to say no, when to stop, when to go. So a lot will be asked, but those are some of the main things.
Thanks for addressing that question, Brandy. Amy, yeah.
Yeah, and my thing that I just wanted to add, which we've talked about a little bit or made level to, but is communication. That communication piece and the negotiating scenes beforehand is so huge. I mean, sometimes you're going to be playing with people that you meet, like if you are in a party situation, like that you meet that day. But there should be an opportunity to get to know each other, vet each other, and have that communication before a scene is initiated. I always say, especially if you're, I mean, this is whether you're new or this is a partner who you've had before, like texting is not the ideal way to bring up. Like maybe if it's like you're really trying to figure out how to get to that communication, like send a video and say, hey, can we talk about when we're next together? Can we talk about maybe introducing this type of play and how we feel about it? But so much can be lost in translation with texting, and then our minds can go in all of these different spirals. So I just think that like negotiating the scene, having that communication before, during, right? So you have those safe words. If you need to take a pause, you use your safe words. I like personally, I like the green, yellow, red, just because I'm not going to remember pineapple or whatever my safe word is when I'm in like my like sub or dom space, right? And then that aftercare, so huge, so needed. And then I also like having a follow-up like 1 or 2 days later with the person that I played with about the scene. What are things that you are replaying in your mind, right? And like getting their feedback in like it helps to like they remember things that you don't even remember happened, and it's like, or that you said that like was such a turn on, or you did that was such a turn on, and I'm like, oh, and then you're able to give that feedback as well. So I really like that before, during, the aftercare. And I would say the aftercare should be, in my opinion, that's not necessarily when you're talking about the scene. It's that 1 or 2 days after, when you've been able to really like process everything, and that's a great time to talk about the scene. Whereas the aftercare is more like that immediate, like physical, psychological, like holding.
Thank you so much for adding all of that. Yeah, Leah, final comment?
Yes, I wanted to say aftercare is always, always overlooked, and it's so critical to BDSM. Any type of bondage, you've been tied up, suffocated, whatever it is, you need that aftercare. So I think that's huge. And BDSM also gives you a chance to be in tune with your body. You may not even know that you like something lightly, like across your back, until somebody does it. So, or something behind your knee or something just that you never would have thought of is super pleasurable. So it does open those doors of like, hey, I like more stuff. It doesn't have to be intercourse. I'm sorry, I had to say that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love the passion behind that. Guests, we would love for you, before you head out, if you would, one word in the chat that is kind of encapsulates how you're feeling right now, something you learned, something you took away or walking away with. One word that resonates with you based on something you learned today or something you heard, or it could be something you're feeling right now in this moment. We'd love to hear from you in the chat. Additionally, we want to thank our panelists. We hope that you feel we explored kink in terms of the realm of playfulness, innovation, and creativity here today. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our guests. We'll be back next month, the third Tuesday of the month, and stay tuned for more details, which will be coming soon. But we're so glad you're here. I'll be following up with an email with all of the information about the panelists if you want to connect with them personally. Reach out with them, work one-on-one, and I'll also include a feedback form so we can hear from you and connect with you personally if that's something you're interested in. So thank you so much again for being here. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next time.